Now these speakers are anything but typical. They're 52-inch tall behemoths with 4 8-inch woofers, 2 5¼ mid-range drivers, and a tweeter nestled in between them. They're from Atlantic Technologies, which, for those of you unfamiliar with them, are based in the US and have been making audio gear for over 30 years. And these are their flagship line of speakers, the 8600E LR towers and the 8600EC center channel speaker. Paired with them are the 8200E SR surrounds and their dual opposed subwoofer. Oh, there is a lot here, and in this video we're going to tell you how they perform for both movies and music. This is the review. Stick around. Hey guys, it's the Villaman here, home theater enthusiast and lover of all things tech. And I've had these Atlantic Technology speakers in my setup for a while now, listening and testing to see just how well they perform. But before I can get into any of that, let's unbox them and go over their specs. First up is the 8600E LR towers, and the first thing you notice is how big these boxes are. The boxes come pretty well packaged with styrofoam to protect it during shipping, and although you can see that the boxes have clearly seen better days, they have protected the speakers well and they remain immaculate inside, thankfully. In the box you'll find the speakers, product information as well as warranty, as well as the feet and carpet spikes. The center channel speaker is also well protected with styrofoam, and in the box there is the speaker, of course, supporting documentation, as well as what I can only describe as a plate where you rest the speaker on so you can adjust its tilt to aim it better to the listening position. Then there's the 8200 surround speakers, and finally the SBT1000 subwoofer. There are also stands available for the surround speakers, which Atlantic sent me, but I didn't need them since I already had stands for my surround speakers. It's a great option for anyone who doesn't already have those stands though. The speakers come in a shiny black gloss finish and have a pretty interesting three-way design. The towers have 7 drivers with 4 8-inch woofers, 2 5¼ mid-range drivers, and a 1-inch aluminum magnesium tweeter. Firstly, they are some tall towers and are actually more shallow than you'd expect, so it can fit in a lot more places and you don't necessarily need to worry about how close it's placed to the wall behind it. And that's one of the benefits of its seal designs. On the back you'll find the dual pairs of gold-plated binding posts for bi-amping and some things that you typically don't see on speakers. A high-frequency energy switch which allows you to match the tweeter response to the type of room you have. Then there's a location switch to select whether the speaker is in a room or behind a screen, and a boundary compensation switch which adjusts the mid-range response based on how close the speaker is to things like cabinets or a TV. It's pretty cool. Next is the biggest center channel that I have ever seen, the 8600EC. Not only is this also a seal design, but it has 7 drivers as well, with 4 6.5-inch woofers, 2 5¼ mid-range drivers, and a 1-inch silk dome diaphragm tweeter. Internally, the tweeter and mid-range drivers are isolated from the woofers and shares the customization switches found on the towers. The SBT1000 subwoofer is also a very interesting design because of its dual opposed 12-inch woofers powered by a 1000 watt RMS amplifier. It's actually a sub-design that I've never had in this room before. It has a smaller sibling, the SBT500, with a 500 watt RMS amplifier and 10-inch dual opposed woofers. On the back of the sub you'll find the controls and connectors, a max SPL or max frequency range switch to customize the performance profile, the low pass filter switch, standby mode selector, phase, gain, the crossover selector, and both RCA and XLR connections. In the max frequency range mode, the frequency response is 20 Hz to 300 Hz plus or minus 3 dB, while in the max SPL mode, the range is 27 Hz to 300 Hz plus or minus 3 dB. Below the controls, you'll find the rear facing port. So let's talk about performance now and what you can expect from them based on my experience. The speakers are on the warm side of neutral and have a really pleasing tonality. There's a clarity that the speaker provides highlights, especially to dialogue, which is arguably better than any of the speakers I've tested in recent memory. Not only was the tweeter and mid-range clear and detailed, the soundstage was wider than I expected. The array of drivers here definitely played their part, but the crossover system they implemented works very well. I have the speakers connected to a Denon X4300H receiver and powered by a Parasound A51 power amplifier, which provides all the power these speakers need. And during movies, the sound reproduction was some of the best I've heard. From the high frequency special effects to the dialogue in the most challenging of scenes. One of my go-to dialogue tests is the opening of Wonder Woman, where she's speaking as the camera moves through the clouds and rumbles. And that happens while she's narrating and will distort on lesser speakers, but the 8600C was unfazed. That is, of course, what I'd expect from a center channel of this caliber, and especially one as big as this one with so many drivers dedicated to different frequency ranges. It's a beast, and not just in terms of size and looks, but capability as well. I tried and failed to push these speakers to their limits in my room. I think my ears would have given out before the speakers did, long before the speakers did. And that's where I think these speakers really shine. They can fill a large room and be as dynamic as you need without breaking a sweat, as long as you pair it with a sub, of course. And that brings us to the drawback. Because it's a sealed design, the speakers don't have that low frequency extension that you'll find on its ported counterparts, so you'll definitely need to pair it with a sub. And the Atlantic SBT 1000 definitely did the job. The sub has a surprising amount of output, more than you'd think by just looking at the 12-inch woofer, but hey, that's the reason why they have two of them built into the same cabinet. They blended really well with the other speakers and was quick in scenes with huge dynamic shifts and provided plenty of slam. It had enough output for a medium to large size room, so it pairs well with the rest of the line. For music, some of the biggest strengths were its neutrality and the transparency it brings to the soundstage, where instruments sounded realistic and listening to music for hours on end is an actual treat. It had just a hint of forwardness, but that's not really obvious unless you're being really critical of the sound. Instruments like upright bass or 808s won't sound quite as good as they could though without a sub. That said, pairing the speakers with a sub at an 80Hz crossover would make it a non-issue. So what didn't I like about these speakers? Well, I would have preferred if the feet were a bit more offset to help with the stability, since they're so tall and not so deep. Also, the sub has an auto on feature, but I found that I had to increase the volume on my receiver for the auto on function to work. That's something I've never had to do with any other sub, so there may be an input voltage sensitivity issue. Beyond that, I had nothing else of note. That said, I measured the towers with Room EQ Wizard running at full range with Odyssey Multi-EQ disabled, and the response was pretty flat. There was a bit of a null at the 90Hz range, but that was most likely a function of my particular room, but the measurements were impressive nonetheless. Measuring the sub proved to be a bit more difficult though, and I didn't get any good measurement data. There was a huge dip below 70Hz, which didn't make any sense because I had the speakers crossed over at 80Hz and it shook the house when I played movies, so I know the graph showing a huge drop after 70Hz wasn't correct. I did a few runs and the results didn't change, so it may have been the fault of my receiver. I'm not really sure, but let me know what you think in the comments. Overall though, I really like these speakers and they are an absolutely stellar set. They are fantastic performers for even the most challenging materials out there, whether that be movies or music, and have output for days. These are reference quality speakers in every sense of the word. The added customization controls make them great for placement behind a screen in a dedicated theater room or in custom cabinets. The dipole surrounds aren't quite as capable as the rest of the set, but does the job of providing ambient sound for movies with great timbre matching of the main speakers without issue. They have a switch to select whether to operate in bipole or dipole mode, depending on your room, which is very helpful for integrating it into your setup. I've published a movie and music demo of the speakers like I do for all the speakers I review, so check those out if you have a chance, if you want to hear how they sound in my room. Caveats of recording for compressed YouTube video streaming notwithstanding. So who are these for? Well, they are for anyone with a large size room that needs a lot of output while maintaining a faithful, uncolored reproduction of the source material. The Atlantic Technologies 8600 series speakers are definitely stellar performance that are worth looking at. Let me know what you think about these speakers in the comments and what speakers you have in your setup. Thanks for watching, and thanks to Atlantic Technologies for sending these speakers out for review. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, this has been your friend and neighborhood Villaman saying be safe and Happy New Year.